Showing.
There we go. Think everyone's good. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Chris Whalen CPA podcast. Today we have a real treat. We're going to be talking to Abe Cohn and Elliot Dweck of Transworld of Tri-County. They're dealing with everything related to selling or buying a business. Welcome, both of you. How are you today?
Good. How are
Thank
you?
you. Honored to be here, Chris.
Really?
Yeah, been
Well,
waiting a lot of years for this
I
moment.
better sit up straight.
And that's it.
We had just become acquainted the past few weeks and had an initial meeting together, and I was really excited to meet you because I don't really have anybody who's knowledgeable in the area that you're dealing with, that you're disciplined. So I wanted to get you on the podcast as soon as possible because all my clients who have a business to sell or want to buy one really need to reach out to you. So what just why don't you, hey, why don't you give us a little of your history in business, and then we'll get to Elliot.
Sure. So I was had a family retail company called Conway Stores. We were based in Manhattan, mostly discount apparel and housewares and home goods. We were in business for over 70 years. I was third generation in the business. My father and I ran the business together for the up until 10 years ago for the prior almost 20 years together. We sold the business 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago now, to another retail chain. When we sold it, we had 90 locations in 12 states. So it was a pretty big company, about 3,000 employees, over $200 million in sales annually. So it was a big business. Um, from that transaction, my brother and I got into the car wash business. We started acquiring locations, and most of the time, we dealt with business brokers on those acquisitions, and very often we were disappointed with the quality of information and the attentiveness and a lot of different parts to the broker's responsibilities, which always left me with a void kind of in the back of my mind. And about what is it? It's almost 3 years ago now. Elliot and I partnered because he had the brokerage background, which I did not. He'll tell you about it. And we decided to get into brokerage, but through Transworld, which is a network, actually the largest network in the country, and we control three area territories for Transworld, which is Monmouth and Ocean County, New Jersey, and Staten Island, New York. And we've been pretty successful in the first year since we got it. We were Rookie of the
You
Year.
surely would.
Yeah, so we were.
Wow.
Transworld has about 250 offices around the country and some internationally, and we were the best office for the
Wow.
year out. Yeah, so
Out of 250 offices.
right, so that was pretty good.
Elliot, tell me about your history.
Sure. My history is much shorter, because I'm only 30. But I've been in brokerage, mostly real estate brokerage, for the past 11 years. I sold townhouses in Manhattan, mostly on the Upper East Side. I sold industrial properties in Brooklyn. I did my toes in lending, private lending. So I had all those types of experiences, which I also I ran a talk show where I interviewed founders of businesses from around the country. And so all those experiences helped me get to here selling businesses.
Oh, that's great. So we have a number of questions here I think that the audience is going to really want to hear about. So the first question is, why is it better to buy a business than to start a business?
No?
Yeah. So starting a business is just simply a lot more risk. You're starting from scratch, and you have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't have any customers coming in. You don't know You don't have relationships with vendors. You don't have the industry experience. You don't,
Please.
right, employees, marketing. Nobody knows who you are, versus coming in to an existing business where the register is ringing, so to speak, day one.
People ask me that question, I say, well, I want someone else to break it in. Someone else has
Exactly.
broken it in, gotten through the kinks,
And make
gotten
all
through
the
the
mistake. Right.
right,
Right.
whether you have purchasing, employees, HR, whatever it might be. Every business is slightly different and nuanced. So I think that's what I always say. If you could find something where someone has gone through the headache of going through the kinks and the startup problems, then you're 99% ahead of the game than starting your own, right?
Exactly.
Next question. What should a buyer look for when buying a business?
You know. So we look for stability. We look for what we like to get as listings is stability, positive cash flow, an experienced staff in place so that the transition from the old owner to the new owner becomes much less bumpy, if you say, or risky when there's this experienced staff behind them. When the owner is doing 10 different jobs where the business can't function without him, usually the transition doesn't go well, and that's a much riskier deal. So we generally look for stability, cash flow, amount of years in business, things like that.
If you had a preference or you had your way, would you rather the old selling owner stay on for a while, or does that not matter to you? So what's your take on that particular thing?
Yeah, definitely better if the owner could stay on for a while. You want as smooth of a transition as possible. One, the owner that's been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years knows the business better than anyone, and for that person to stay and train you is invaluable. You don't want the employees thinking all of a sudden one day they had this person that they know forever and the next day they're gone. So as seamless of a transition as possible, whether your quote unquote partners in the beginning, and then slowly the old owner starts to fade out.
It's interesting in my line of work, they don't do it that way. Many of these large conglomerates come in, they don't want the partner to stay on. They just want to come and cherry pick the best clients, and they even tell the old partner or CPA to not talk to the clients anymore. It's very odd to me. It's very impersonal. I don't know why in my
Right.
industry that's done that way, but you've seen that too, correct?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think the conglomerates and the PE group, private equity groups, is a whole different mentality. We generally don't deal with them on some larger deals. We might because there just is not enough money privately to do it. But our bread and butter is more Main Street deals. What we call Main Street businesses. That are funded privately or with an SBA loan or things like that. The private equity just is a whole different mentality. They're looking for, there's they're looking to exit before they enter. It's all about how
Right,
quickly.
right.
So I think that's part of the reason why they don't want the founder or the old owner involved because it just their goals are not the same. They don't have the
Got
same.
it.
You know what I mean? That's usually where that comes from.
Got it. So what do I need to prepare in order to sell my business?
So the most important thing is to meet with a guy like yourself, their accountant, and there's always a tug of war in a private, whether it's family business or private, few partners, small business, where how much taxes do we pay and how much do we show as profit on the tax return? That's I'm sure you get that all the time in your world. For us, of course the more you could show and pay taxes on, the better price we can get you for the business because the business is going to be a multiple of that number usually. It also means we could finance it with a loan, whereas if there's minimal profit or cash flow on the tax return, that becomes difficult. So the number one
Got
thing
it.
is clean up the books, basically.
Next question. Why should I hire a business broker to sell my business?
I think Elliot should take that. Yes, he loves that.
Um, so if a person thinks that they could sell their business by themselves, I always say, I think you should try. and I wish you the best of luck. And if it doesn't work out, here's my card and feel free to call me. It never works when they try to do it themselves. The only time it does work is if they sell at 50% less than what it's worth, because they're probably speaking with one person. That one person is going to want a serious discount. When you hire a business broker, first of all, they're going to guide you on what to do. They might tell you the buyer can get a loan from a bank that you don't even realize that could happen. So a business broker could have relationships with banks. They may need an attorney, they may need a CPA, they might not have these people ready that a business broker could help them with. They don't know how to prepare their business to sell.
I always say is you could always do your own tax return. Also could fill your own cavity. I wish you luck with that.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. Right. It's
Next,
the business, other than their family, for most of these people, the business is the next most precious item. So go try selling your own kid. See how that works.
try to be unbiased, right? So why
Exactly.
should we hire you, Abe and Elliot? Why should we hire you to represent us selling a business? What's the difference you bring?
So first of all, Trans World in general brings a difference. So Trans World, like I said before, is the largest business broker network in the country and probably soon to be in the world. They're opening a lot of international offices. The reason that is because there's actually a training process and an ongoing support system within Trans World, basically almost like a franchise type system, which is very valuable because business brokerage is totally unregulated for the most part. Anybody, depending on the state, in some states you need a real estate broker's license. In many states, like New Jersey, you don't. So anybody could be a business broker tomorrow morning. So the barriers to entry are not there, but having a trans world system in place makes that a different world in terms of experience and getting the job done. In terms of Elliot and myself, we have a very, very good combination of broker slash business owner combination between us that is pretty rare out there. And I think we bring a lot to the table because of the different perspectives that we have.
Oh, and the good thing about Trans World is that you're vetted. They're
Exactly.
very large. They have a vetting process, which I know is stringent. So that should
Exactly.
give everyone a great comfort level with who we're
Exactly.
talking to. So
Exactly.
that's very, so I know there's no license here, but being with them really almost gives you a certification that you
Exactly.
are a true business broker.
Exactly right.
All right, so why don't you, so just give us an idea. So once I hire you to sell my business, how does the process work? About how long does it take? What can we expect in the first month or two once we hire you?
Great question, Chris. We actually just had a listing appointment about an hour ago, and we got the listing, we got them signed up. They asked exactly the same questions. The answer is typical bit on average, a business takes between 6 to 9 months to sell. In 2023, the average was about 8 months. Obviously, depends on the size of the business. This depends on different circumstances. Um, what would happen is immediately after they hire us is what we'd want to do is collect all of the financial information. It could be leases, P&Ls, tax returns. We'd want POS reports, um, understanding the org chart, basically knowing everything about the business so that for the next X amount of months, when there's a question, we don't have to bother the seller. We could handle it. And once we vet all the buyers ourselves, when we have somebody who's serious, then we'll bring them to you.
Right. So the first thing, based on what you just told me, is that we need to gather a lot of information and take our time to really truly value the business. Because that's where everyone thinks they know what it is when they come to me. I can sell my repair shop for 500,000. Well, they have no
Right.
idea. So that's so the for the main that's the first step is for you guys to give a logical and reasonable value for what they're offering,
Correct.
and then put in the package together, which is exactly what you said. So
Right.
why don't you tell me about how does the SBA work if we want to get a small biz loan for the buyer? So give us some of the quick ins and outs of the SBA, and how do we know if it's a financeable transaction?
So because of again, the size of Transworld and the network, we have a lot of relationships with banks, particularly SBA, large SBA lenders that can get us basically a pre-approval or pre-qualification on the business itself just by reviewing the tax returns. So if we get 3 years worth of tax returns, we send those over to some of the banks we're involved with, and they could get us the business qualified for a certain level of financing. It could be 90% of the price, could be 80%. From that, we would do that right in the beginning. Sometimes we do that even before we have the listing, just to see what and help in terms of the valuation. If we do get the pre-approval, and then we end up getting a buyer, obviously the borrower or the buyer has to get approved as well. But that process with the SBA really has two components. It's the work experience of the person. Have you ever owned a business? Have you been in the industry before? That kind of, they want to know that you could succeed. And then just the credit, usually a basic credit rating, which doesn't need to be 800, but you need probably something above 650 or something to get a decent sized loan. So we'll handle a lot of that process for both sides, the borrower and the seller.
A comment that'll dovetail with this is that if you have seller financing, that can make it all go a lot quicker. The seller wants to hold the loan or give the loan.
Yeah.
So because SBA can require a lot of collateral, correct?
Uh,
Besides the business, how have you found that the past few years?
Yeah, so you'll have obviously a personal guarantee from the borrower. Depending on the size of the loan, they may want actual hard collateral, like a piece of real estate or something, or a second lien on real estate. But that's going to depend on the lender and the size of the loan. Very often, if the business is strong with strong cash flow, they'll just take the business that's being acquired. They'll have a lien on that, obviously, all the assets, and then a personal guarantee from the borrower.
Not to be self-serving. Next question: how important is it to have a good attorney and a good accountant?
It's a great question. I would say if you don't hire Chris, you might as well not do it because Chris is the best in the business. And no, but in all seriousness, you got to put together a team. So a lot of times, as a business broker, we're kind of quarterbacking the deal because our goal is basically aligned with the client of getting the deal done. But we do want to put together a team of professionals. We want to have a great lender, we want to have a great bank, we want to have a great attorney who's going to help protect them and draft the contract and go through the whole process in a timely manner. We want to have a great CPA who's going to help a lot of times in due diligence, start speaking with the other CPA to make sure that all the financials are worked out properly between them. So we try to help our clients put together a dream team so that the sale could go through successfully and smoothly.
I agree. I always say that the broker is important because we need to know how much we should fight for the value. If I'm trying to sell it myself, I'm not sure what it's worth. You guys are going to give me assurance we should go for X dollars. And we have the accountant is here to minimize your capital gains, set you up for tax strategies as the buyer. And the attorney is meant to protect us in the future from any liability. So you need the team, and
Sure.
everyone's equally important in the team. All right, so why don't you tell me about a recent transaction where you got the seller top dollar?
So many come to mind. We've done a bunch of transactions recently where we've gotten full price.
We have one now that's not done, but it's signed LOI and it's moving along. That was a flower business. Great business, unbelievable business, very, very strong cash flow. The asking price was 2.2 million. We have it assigned that we were on the market for a week. We have a full price LOI signed in a week.
And that just shows you guys know what you're doing. That's the whole idea. That's the most important mistake that everyone makes with selling a business. They don't know how much that it's worth. more important than the accountant or the lawyer after the fact. That's what I've seen in my 37-year career. I'm like, well, this was probably worth another couple $100,000 when I
Right.
get a new client who bought something from someone selling it on the street by them, just like you said at the beginning. So,
Right.
so,
Right.
so,
It's,
and so,
it's,
go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I was gonna, sorry to interrupt. It's us having a good idea of what it's worth, and then it's us running a marketing process, and the market will tell you if we're right or wrong, which, usually we're pretty close, but we only know as good as what the market is. So don't take, you're not selling there's not no two are the same, I should say. So the market, we have to get it out there and market it properly and put a very strong estimate on what it's worth and then allow the market to tell us what it's worth.
And that's why it's really important that you're involved with Trans World, because again,
Exactly.
you have the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people internationally that are
Exactly.
selling properties, selling biz all around the world. So you guys probably have meetings on a monthly or quarterly basis. So there's this great
Exactly.
hive mind. I know there's a great hive mind there of information that makes you even more confident in what you're doing. So
Exactly.
it's a perfect situation.
Right. And if we don't know, not that we don't know what we're doing, but if we don't know the specifics of that industry or that business, we have Trans World Corporate who's been doing it for 40 years to ask that question, which is a big support.
Exactly. Right. Now, how do you qualify a buyer?
So there's a few ways to qualify a buyer. Within 30 seconds on the phone, we can usually know if the buyer is somebody that could seriously buy this business or not. It's very simple questions. What do you do? Where do you live? And how much money do you have to invest? So if the guy says, I live in Oklahoma, but I'm going to operate this bagel store and somehow I'll show up once every 6 months to get the money, okay, out. The guy says, I work on Wall Street, but all things that just don't
Side
make
business.
sense.
Right, right.
Or I don't have money, but I think I have an uncle in Panama who might send me money. So in all those situations, it's just not, it's a waste of time.
These things really happen, by the way. He's not kidding.
Yeah.
You get those conversations really happen. It's crazy. It really is crazy.
So
Next question. How important is recurring revenue in buying a business? Like I have recurring revenue, a big portion are tax returns and financial statements. So how
Right.
important is that?
Huge. It's huge because back to what we said before about the stability and the transition going smoothly doesn't mean it's perfect, but when there's recurring revenue and the customer is committed to pay again, if the new owner has the same values and a lot of the same strategies as the exiting person, then odds are that revenue and profit will stay. And because of that, generally you could get a higher multiple when there's recurring revenue involved.
And so the next question is going to revolve around valuing something. So let's just make it pretty simple. So let's say we have a fitness center, we have a doctor's office, and we have a cleaning service. So three different types of businesses. So how might just in general, how might you go about so the audience that's working in these areas thinking of selling, what kind of information would you use and what kind of factoring would you use to value it and why?
So the fitness center is the first one, right?
Yeah.
That you would think would have recurring because generally you're gonna have a membership-based business. So there, the two biggest factors are gonna be the recurring and a lot's going to depend on the lease there. I'm assuming you're leasing the property. If you own the property or something, assuming they're leasing the property, how long is the lease? What's the rent structure going forward? Is any big increases coming up? That's where you're going to look to on that one. Also competition. The gym market is pretty saturated in certain areas, so you're going to look at what's the growth potential based on who else is out there.
So like in real estate, there's a cap rate. If there's a residential building, it's multifamily, 5 units down the block, it's going to be the same 6 cap. Here, there's so many factors, even in fitness alone. How many trainers are there? How long have they been? There's like a list of 20 questions we
Right.
would ask before even getting to what does it show on the return?
Right.
Can you get a loan? Are you going to hold? How much are you going to hold? What's the interest rate on
Yeah.
so there's so many factors before we could even get to a multiple of the cash flow.
What was
Got
the
it.
second one? The doctor's office?
Yeah, it was a doctor's office and a cleaning service.
No. Okay, so the doctor's office can be a wide range there because is the doctor a sole practitioner? Are there partners that are going to stay? Obviously it's the most personal business that could be. So if the doctor's in business very long but doesn't have anybody behind him, we're going to ask for a long transition period so that the new person is comfortable. That they get it could be a year or two maybe with the new doctor that they're comfortable with the transition. If they're
Got it.
willing to stay for that kind of time, then you could be talking about maybe a three times multiple or
Like
something like that.
right. And so, like in my line of work, we work with brokers. So everyone has to remember sometimes that the tax return we have to normalize it, right? Sometimes there's perks,
Right,
sometimes there's W-2s for owners that might not be there. So
right,
man, there's a lot of work that has to get done to take that tax return, net income, and also change it into something that's more is rational based on buying it.
right,
Important for everybody to know. So if you have perks, your mom's working there, she's not going to be working there anymore. Do we
right,
really need mom there?
right, right. Add backs, we call
Right. And the next one, if a business owner is not ready to sell, is it still worth meeting with you? Well, I know that answer, but go ahead.
them. What do you think, Al?
I think it's definitely worth meeting with us because we get calls all the time from people who say, I want to sell my business and I need it sold by Tuesday.
Right,
Well, if you called me last year, you would have been able to sell on Tuesday for a lot more.
Well, and why is it important? Because I know when I've dealt with people selling a business, if they had called you, I mean, I have good experience with what I do and it's tax and some business, but you being the experts at brokering, you're going to tell them how to set themselves up for the best success they can have 6 months from now. So, it's like, so that's one of the most important. So you'll come in, assess, take a look at everything and say, listen, I've sold repair shops before. You really need to do this, this, and this to clean things up or make it look better on the books or in the shop. So it looks palatable, more and more palatable for a buyer. So that's why you got to talk to you if you're even have an inkling of it and whenever it's going to be. The quicker they can talk to you, the more they're going to put things in place to make themselves stand out and get top dollar when they call you to sell.
And
correct.
don't take your foot off the gas and
Yeah,
don't slow it down one bit.
that's the
And they
biggest problem.
sometimes it's, oh, I was about to fire her. Don't fire her.
That's right.
Don't do anything.
Right.
Give me a few months and you're going to get paid for all this pain we're
Exactly.
going through.
Exactly.
Excellent. Next, how does it work when real estate's involved?
So we generally guide, depending on where the real estate and what type of real estate, we generally guide and the age, I guess, of the seller. A lot of times we'll guide them to keep the real estate and have the new buyer as their tenant. Because for the new buyer to take on the real estate on the initial transaction, sometimes is a burden. It makes the deal much larger. So we can get them maybe an option to buy it later, but we usually would like to sell the business with a lease, hopefully a friendly lease in place with the seller, with the original owner, and then maybe an option to buy the real estate later at a later date.
Right. Next question. When is the best time to sell your business?
What is the best time? And yeah. Uh,
When is the best time?
Mhm.
yeah. When you said, right? When is the best time?
When?
Yeah.
I have a very, very, very good answer that I'm very confident about here. You want to sell your business at your peak.
That's right.
You don't want to sell when you're winding down. You don't want to sell where you say, oh, well, in 2017, I was doing this. Now, whatever. But you could see where I was. When sales are going down, it's not a good sign. So and we have somebody we're actually talking to right now that we're trying to get signed up where he's saying, well, business is great, business is great, business is great. And in the last few years, it's been unbelievable. So we told him, listen, keep riding it. But if you think that in the next few years, it's going to start to go down, you're going to be kicking yourself that you didn't sell now.
Percent. I have a question here. What do you find there's more asset sales or equity stock type sales? The more people buy the assets or buy the stock or
Yeah,
equity?
mostly the assets because it's just cleaner. You're not dealing with any potential liabilities that pop up from before. Um, the only time we usually would do a stock sale is if there might be loans in place that we want to get assigned. Yeah, and to do that, you have to move the whole entity with it, as you know, so you're not affecting the existing borrower. But for the most part, we'd like to do an asset purchase so that the liabilities are not a problem for the new owner.
Great. And so, what should a buyer ask for in the due diligence phase? What kind of information should the buyer get?
So there's, I would say there's two parts to the due diligence phase. One is the financials and two is the operation. Sometimes a lot of people that on a lot of transactions we've done, buyers tend to focus as they should, but too much on the financials and not enough on the operations. So they make sure all the numbers work out as if it's a real estate deal. But in terms of operations, they don't understand how the operation works, or they can't see themselves standing in that spot. They say, what do you mean? But it's making $1 million a year. But it's only making $1 million a year if you could do what he's doing.
Right. And so I was going to ask, what about like if you have tax returns that they give you that the seller wants you to review, do you ever use a 4506 and actually get a copy from the IRS? We haven't found that to be necessary.
We haven't. It's possible, you know, sometimes depending on where we are in the deal, there are parts of due diligence we may not be privy to. So their accountant may have requested it and we didn't know. But generally speaking, if it's a signed tax return, we usually assume that it's accurate. Yeah.
Got it. And the last question I have is how long does it usually take approximately? I know it varies widely, but just give me an approximation. If I met you today and I'm ready to go, and a month from now we have all the paperwork to you and due diligence done, we have a value. About how long would it usually take to sell?
So like I said before, I would say 6 to 9 months. The average last year was 8 months. We've sold businesses in 2 months, 3 months. There's businesses that we've
Wow.
sold in 18 months. It really depends on if the paperwork is clean, we should be able to sell it
And
quickly,
everybody's
and
motivated.
everybody's motivated.
Huh.
There's some deals where we want it more than the buyer and the seller,
That's
and
problem.
that is usually a disaster. But if everyone's motivated and the numbers are clean, we're usually fine.
Have you found the election? I mean, I've found a lot of confidence has been increasing. The entrepreneurial confidence is out off the hook. I've never had more clients coming in to start new businesses, do M&A work. I mean, everyone's very excited. I'm not saying politically, but everyone's very excited about the prospects of the next 4 years from an economic and self-employment perspective. So I'm sure you guys are very excited like I am about. That's going to be good for all of us.
Yeah, there was definitely some nervousness before the election, for sure. We saw a slowdown, but I think everybody's charged up now.
So when we finish, I want you to tell everyone slowly exactly how to find you and you like them to reach out to you. And of course, my subscribers can reach out through me. I'll get them right in touch with you as well. But just give us a last piece of information about how to reach you.
Sure. So we're Trans World of Tri-County. My name's Elliot Dweck. You could call me on my cell 917-757-7715. I will always respond. If I'm in a meeting, I'll never not respond within, I'll say, 3 hours, no matter what's going on in my life.
Email, give me email.
Email is edweck@tworld.com. edweck@tworld.com.
Good.
Any of
So,
you want to say
my,
something?
yeah, my cell is 201-679-9014. Definitely not as good a response time as Elliot, I'll tell you that now. He's a much better, so I would try him first. But of course, I will get back to you. And I'm A Cohen, ACOHEN @tworld.com.
Thank you guys. This has been incredibly informative. I'm sure everyone's going to really love it. And we're going to, of course, we'll get together again, maybe after tax season to see how the first quarter went into the second quarter for everything for business broking. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.